CBS Sports HQ, Cooper Flag, that's so yesterday. With the 2025 NBA draft officially in the rear view, it's time to start thinking about the next wave. If you've heard of a guy named Dybantsa, he's the 6'9" jumbo wing. He's been top of mind for most since committing to BYU. He's largely projected to be a top pick, but will he be the top pick? Not if Darryn Peterson has anything to say about it, as well as Cameron Boozer. You see him on your screen set to go to Duke next year with his twin brother. So let's get to know some of these names with our basketball crew. We've got Mike O'Donnell back in the house joining us here in studio, and we've also got 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting, Adam Finkelstein, joining us. Guys, it's never too early to be prepared for the future, and we've got a lot of great talent in this upcoming class. So let's start at the top. And Fink, I'll come to you first here. You got Darryn Peterson, Dybantsa, two names who next year we know we'll likely hear very early in the draft. When we look at your latest mock, though, you give Peterson the edge when it comes to the #1 overall pick. Talk us through your process of those two and why you give him the nod over AJ.
This would have been very unlikely a year or so ago. AJ is a 6'9" jumbo wing, a full-level scorer, cover the court, and that's the stuff that's almost always the #1 pick. But what Peterson did in his senior season in prolific prep is he went head-to-head against AJ, he went head-to-head against Cam Boozer, and he went head-to-head against Nate Amen, and he outplayed all three of them. He showed more growth during that course of the senior season than the other prospects, and he's dynamic in his own right. Now 6'6" in shoes with a 6'10" wingspan. He's made a really notable commitment to his conditioning, become more explosive, and he's got an instinctive ability to get his own shot at multiple levels. He's very adept at drawing fouls, and he can create for others around him. Bill Self has called him the best recruit in the history of the Kansas program, and Bill Self has gotten a couple guys named Andrew Wiggins and Joel Embiid. So that's pretty high praise for the incoming Kansas freshman.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Adam has Peterson as #1, where a lot of people don't. They just think it's Dybantsa. And it's not a foregone conclusion at all. When you watch his film, I'm talking about Darryn Peterson, Bill Self doesn't just say stuff like that. Adam knows that really well. He doesn't just go out and talk about recruits like that. When you watch his film, effortless is the word that comes to mind, and the way that he plays. I mean, this kid is talented enough to be Big 12 Freshman of the Year and Big 12 Player of the Year. He's that good. His ability to make shots off the bounce, in catch and shoot, attack the rim, he's good on both ends of the floor. I think everybody talks about Dybantsa, because why does the #1 recruit in the country or the #2 recruit in the country go to BYU? That doesn't happen very often. But Peterson is the absolute truth, and he is going to be a joy to watch. I mean, you heard Adam's breakdown there. This has a chance to be one of the best recruits ever at Kansas, and that phrase is crazy to say.
Yeah, that is very high praise, because to Fink's point, you think about the names that have come through Kansas's roster. I mean, big expectations there for Peterson. All right, let's move on. We had the Eye on College Basketball podcast hosts Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish. You guys both know them very well, yesterday on the program, and they were talking about the Duke Blue Devils and this incoming class and how they're going to replace everything that they lost in the draft. And one of the things that both of them kind of agreed on was the fact that this Duke class coming in is good, but it's not the best that we've seen, right? Bill Self's not going to say that they're the best. But it does have the Boozer twins, Fink, and more importantly, it's got Cameron Boozer on there, and you have him going 3 overall, rounding out the top 3.
Yeah, and let me tell you about Cameron Boozer. Right now, the dialogue about #1, and let's be clear, all of that is premature because a lot can change in a year. But the dialogue is about Dybantsa and Peterson. But Cameron Boozer is the most successful high school player that I have ever seen. And I know that sounds like a grandiose statement, but let me break it down for you. He won every single competition he played in for 4 years of high school. He won 4 Florida state championships. He won 3 Nike EYB championships, including one over Cooper Flag. He won 2 gold medals, and then he won a national championship last year at Columbus High School. This guy didn't lose. I'm not talking about individual games. I'm talking about championships and competitions. And while he may not be as dynamic of a creator as Dybantsa or Boozer, he is fundamentally sound, and he has the highest floor in this class. He is a can't-miss prospect. Powerful, he's skilled, he's smart, and he is the most efficient guy who understands how to impact winning. And that is a skill set and a resume that is going to resonate with NBA decision makers.
Yeah, 1,000%. The only weakness in his game is that he doesn't have this explosive athleticism. And I'm not even saying he's a bad athlete. He's not a bad athlete. He is built a lot like his dad, tough, nimble tank, but just he's got even more speed and nimbleness than his dad did, than Carlos Boozer did. But that winning's going to translate at Duke. That winning's going to translate at the next level. He is a surefire, can't-miss pro prospect. Since he entered high school, you heard all of the winning accolades that I'm just said. There are really no weaknesses in his game. You don't build players like that of where you can take a guy in a post. He's capable from three. He's a great shot blocker, great rebounder, point forward, does literally everything very, very well. Because when Adam says there's no, his has the highest floor, it's because there are just no weaknesses in his game. And the athleticism is the only question mark while we're not saying, oh, yeah, this guy will be the #1 pick in the draft.
Okay, and that's what I was going to follow up on, what was holding him back from being #1. But it's hard. That top three, it's crazy, the amount of athleticism, championships, all the things that we're expecting at that next level. If we continue to move down your mock, we talk about Yaxel Lindeborg, a name that people have become very familiar with from this year. He was a standout at UAB, and now he's taken his talents to Michigan. And it's interesting, Fink, he originally entered the 2025 NBA draft. He then instead decided to go play for Michigan and get some more experience there. Why do you think that will be the right choice for him?
Well, he's not just going to get more experience, he's going to get more money. The NIL market right now in college basketball is bigger than some of the guaranteed salaries in the NBA draft. It used to be conventional wisdom was if you were a first-round pick, you go to the draft, you get a guaranteed multi-year deal. But right now, there are numerous players, Lindeborg reportedly being among them, who are making more money next year than players who were drafted in spots 21 through 30. And those players were often fringe guys anyway who risked slipping to the second round where you could get a $600,000 two-way deal that's not guaranteed. So the money was better in college, quite frankly, but there's always also an upside play when it comes to his NBA draft stock. Lindeborg is going to go to Michigan. He's going to step right into the role that was vacated by Danny Wolf. Danny Wolf was 6'11", and Dusty May allowed him to initiate offense as if he were a big point guard. That, we are told, is going to be the plan for Lindeborg as well, who filled the stat sheet at UAB unlike almost any other player in college basketball, especially late in the season. Now, his measurables and his athletic gifts are far beyond Danny Wolf. Whether or not he's the supreme processor, we're going to have to find out. But if everything goes well at Michigan and he can prove that he can take on that type of volume and playmaking responsibility that Wolf did, and he's got those measurables, NBA executives aren't going to care that he's 23 years old at the draft next year. They're going to be really intrigued by the rare overlap of skills.
Yeah, Lindeborg is not Danny Wolf at all. I mean, you mentioned you're kind of replacing Danny Wolf, and Adam's right. I mean, that was just, first of all, just a great get by Dusty May at Michigan. But his ability to make plays on both ends of the floor, a little bit different than Danny Wolf. He doesn't have the passing, but he's got the shot blocking. His defensive ability is far superior to what Danny Wolf's was. And also, he's just an excellent rebounder. Awesome path to get to this moment. Former JUCO player, goes to UAB, absolutely blows it up in the American Conference, was the best player and the best defender in the American Conference, tests the NBA draft process. And Adam did mention that, you know, he's going to Michigan for money. It's also system and fit too, I think. But 2 years ago, he could have left UAB after he was an all-conference player where nobody knew who he was, and he decided to stay because there was an unfinished business type quality. There's a maturity to Yaxel Lindeborg, and I think the reason why he's going to be in the lottery, and I think Adam's absolutely right, is when he sits across and has interviews with general management and scouts, he's going to blow them away with the maturity. He's one of the best kids in college basketball.
Hey, Adam, while we're on the topic of the changing world that is college athletics and NIL, we look at a guy like R.J. Lewis, who, of course, went undrafted after he had that not-so-great appearance for St. John's in the final game of the season. He elected to, you know, after entering the transfer portal, he chose to stick it out, and he goes undrafted. So when you look at a guy like Yaxel, or really any of these guys who are in those situations having to face those decisions, do you see what Yaxel doing maybe become the blueprint for some of these guys, or how are we approaching, you know, what that aspect of this looks like?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's important to note that Yaxel wasn't the exception. It was actually RJ who was the exception. A lot of players went back to college basketball. It's why the second round wasn't quite as deep as we saw yesterday. Guys like LeBaron Philon, Boogie Fland, Alex Caravan, those were all players who had a chance to play their way into the first round. It wasn't a guarantee. They were fringe guys, but they took the guaranteed money of college basketball. So it was an unprecedented kind of economic scenario in the draft cycle this year. Now with the House settlement and still some, let's call it iterations to come in the way the finances of college basketball work, we don't yet know if the dynamics are going to be exactly the same next year. But so long as college players are making more than you can make after about the 20th to 25th pick in the NBA draft, there's going to be a definite demand to go back to college basketball. And Haley, remember, if you are a second-round pick, you don't get a guaranteed contract, and most of those guys go on two-way deals, which is just under $600,000, and it's not even guaranteed.
That is crazy to think about. Players making more money in college than in the pros.
There's never been a better time to have great management around you. I mean, you can't, if you're thinking about a 19, 20-year-old kid trying to make that decision, almost impossible. How can you actually do that? We always forget that they're 18, 19, 20 years old. It's the reverse. R.J. Lewis, Yaxel Lendeborg, I think, made the right decision. He's going to improve his draft stock. He's going to make more guaranteed money. This is a win for college basketball. It's a win for Yaxel Lendeborg. But that decision isn't made just by Yaxel. You have to have really good, smart management around you. It has never been more important to have that, because we're seeing some really frustrated players now. Did I make the right decision? Did I not? Because of the management they chose to go with.
All right, let's wrap up our way too early mock draft here for next year's NBA draft. Talking about the Grizzlies, who have the 13th pick. And it's going to be interesting, I think, to monitor what goes on with John Moran and some of those other pieces in Memphis. But Fink, you've got your eyes on Chris Sinek at Memphis at 13. He's a guy who's got some good upside. Maybe needs a little polishing, though, as he heads to Houston for college.
Yeah, so Chris Sinek finished as the number 6 ranked player in the national class last year. I saw him more recently, just about a week and a half ago, out in Colorado Springs, trying out for the USA basketball team that will head to Switzerland to play in a FIBA competition this week. Sinek didn't make the team, Haley, and he got cut over the likes of Morez Johnson, who's going to be at Michigan with the Yaxel Lendeborg, Daniel Jacobson, who's going to be at Purdue. So it was very evident that while he's got extreme athleticism, the potential for inside-out skill, and all the measurables that are going to intrigue NBA scouts, there's work left to be done. Now, went to the right place, because Kelvin Sampson is going to beat that young fella into shape. So I think he's going to look like a vastly different player a year from now than he does right now. And I would also remind our viewers that players like Kel'el Ware, who never really found their true productivity in college, disappointing first season at Oregon, started to get it right in Indiana. He was viewed as one of the best rookies in the NBA this year at Miami. So these NBA decision makers, they will take risk on size, athleticism, and skill. And Senek's got that, even if he's a long way away from being a finished product.
The best thing that Adam said there is that he's going to Houston, and he is emphatically correct, because the best player development program in college basketball right now is Houston basketball. And when you play for Houston, you don't really have a choice. You have to learn how to play the game the right way on both ends of the floor. You have to play hard. You have to play aggressive. And there is an understanding of, if you don't play the right way, you're just not going to play, and they are going to absolutely pull it out of you. And I think Chris Sinek is in the perfect scenario for himself. MVP of the NBPA Top 100 camp. He's got a really unique elasticity to his game. He doesn't move like a traditional 6'10" big guy. I think that Houston will also be playing in the Final Four again, which is even better for Chris in his game. So I think, you know, a lottery pick is absolutely in the conversation next year.
Remember when it went viral that Kelvin Sampson had all his guys out at like 5 a.m. and they're running like 5-minute miles for their conditioning? I mean, that team can do whatever they want when they've got Kelvin Sampson leading the way. Guys, we appreciate the time. Our way too early mock draft. And here's how it looks right now from our Adam Finkelstein. We talked about those big 3 up top. Cameron Boozer maybe can improve on that athleticism. We'll see how that looks with Darryn Peterson and AJ Dybantsa going 1 and 2 in our latest mock here on CBS Sports HQ.